The Portland Trailblazers have a way to stop the NBA's biggest problem right now, Victor Wembanyama. Of course, everyone knows that Victor Wembanyama was considered the best NBA prospect since LeBron James, and for a good reason, honestly, because in his rookie season, I believe that's one for the history books, as he averaged 21 points, 10 rebounds, 3.9 assists, and a whopping 3.6 blocks per game. Not only did he win Rookie of the Year by quite a large margin compared to some of the other guys like Chet Holmgren and even Brandon Miller, but he also had quite the case to be made to be the Defensive Player of the Year, which winning Defensive Player of the Year is no small feat in and of itself, something that even a guy like LeBron James has never done. But the fact that Victor Wembanyama almost did this in his rookie season is just insane. Keep in mind, this is something that has never been done by a player in NBA history, and the only other time we've really seen that almost happen was with Tim Duncan, which funny enough was also on the Spurs. And so the fact that Wemby is arguably better than we all thought he was coming into the NBA leads every team in the NBA except for the Spurs, of course, wondering how are we going to deal with this guy? It's not going to take long until the Spurs are just so good, and teams are going to have to go through them if they want to win a championship. Obviously, teams over in the Eastern Conference have it a bit easier, but for teams like your Portland Trailblazers, who are almost certainly going to have to play them every year in the playoffs in the coming season, you got to ask the question, how are they going to deal with him? Before we get into the Blazers though, look at Victor Wembanyama and think about who he's going to be in a few years. Everyone thought that his rookie season was just historical, and so how is he going to come in his sophomore season, and how is he going to meet expectations? I almost think it's guaranteed that he's going to at least be an all-star this year and potentially have a case to be made for DPOY again. But more importantly from Wemby, how good are the Spurs going to be? As they just drafted what seems to be their point guard of the future in Stephon Castle, and so how's that pairing going to work out? And how long is it going to take until the Spurs are a constant threat in the NBA playoffs each season? And of course, you have to ask, how are other teams going to compete with the Spurs, as the only teams right now who really have a guy that can compete against Victor Wembanyama are Rudy Gobert on the Timberwolves and Chet Holmgren on the Oklahoma City Thunder, as both those guys are elite on defense and have the length and size to compete against Wemby. But that's where your Portland Trailblazers come into play, because they, I believe, have just drafted their Wemby stopper of the future in Donovan Clingan. So let's take these two players and compare them, and I'll break down why I think that Donovan Clingan might be one of, if not the best future player in the NBA to put up against Victor Wembanyama on any given night. Donovan Clingan stands at a whopping 7 foot 2 inches compared to Victor Wembanyama's 7 foot 4 inches. So Wemby definitely has a couple inches on him. However, if you look at their size, Donovan Clingan definitely has a lot more size than Wemby does. Clingan weighs in at 280 pounds while Wemby's still only about 210 pounds. And so if you have Wemby coming down the court and Donovan Clingan's right there protecting the rim, I wouldn't necessarily say that's a free basket for Wemby to get. Now, of course, Victor Wembanyama is a much better offensive player, and I honestly don't think it's that close. But if they're playing each other in the playoffs, I don't really think Clingan will need to be that good in offense as long as he can just stop Wemby, especially if the Blazers decide to hold on to DeAndre Ayton long term. I think as long as Clingan's able to play that lockdown defense that we hope he can, then that'll be enough to put a stop to Wemby on defense. And so I know what you're saying. Sure, Donovan Clingan has the size, but what else can he do? Well, Clingan's one of the only other players in the league who I believe has the potential to be as elite on defense and the ability to block the ball like Wemby does. As if you even go back to Summer League, where Wemby averaged a historic number 4 blocks per game when he played in Summer League last year. But that record only held up for about a year because this last season, Donovan Clingan came along and averaged 4.3 blocks per game. And yes, I know that Wemby didn't play the whole Summer League like Donovan Clingan did, but I think it's honestly more impressive that Clingan was able to average 4.3 blocks over an entire Summer League than Wemby was in only a couple of games. And yeah, you can make a case that if Wemby had played the full Summer League, he would have ended up averaging more. But in those 2 games that Wemby played, he averaged 4 blocks. He got 5 blocks one game, 3 blocks another, and so I don't really think that he would be averaging 4.5 or more blocks, and so chances are Clingan still would have broke that record this season. And so all that to say, I really do believe that Wemby can come in and be that same defensive presence for the Blazers that Wemby is for the Spurs. Now, some of Wemby's best skills on offense is being able to get past defenders and dunk the ball from just about anywhere on the court. Luckily for Blazer fans, one of Clingan's best skills on defense is being able to protect the rim at an elite level, and someone who already shows the skill set to be able to compete with the best of them on defense. I briefly touched on the similarities in their heights, however, Clingan's physicality and strength can help him really hold his own against Wemby and other centers in the league. Donovan Clingan's rebounding ability, particularly on the defensive side, can limit second chance opportunity for guys like Wemby and stop them from scoring as a whole, as Donovan Clingan just being there at the rim poses a huge threat for Wemby in the one way that he's best at scoring, which is at the rim. I mentioned this before, but Clingan isn't nearly as versatile and agile as Wemby is, but given the immense size difference between the two, Clingan does have the skill set to be able to move quick and get to where he needs to be to block any shot he has to. I could see Clingan even contesting those distant three-point shots from Victor Wembanyama. Wemby's able to shoot a three-point over just about anyone in the NBA given just his height, but as I said, Clingan has the height and agility to potentially be able to block or at least contest these shots, and at bare minimum just make it a bit harder for Wemby to take those on any given play. Clingan's IQ is also something that isn't talked about enough, as part of his defensive game is just pure instincts, but a part of that is just having a great understanding for the game of basketball, something that I believe is really going to benefit him as he develops into the NBA player he's going to become. Donovan Clingan has also been a winner and has been a part of winning teams for his entire basketball career, both while he was at UConn in those back-to-back titles, but also while he was in high school. So he's been around that winning culture and he knows what it takes to win games on defense. Part of what I really love about Donovan Clingan is that he's not going to do what he needs to do to get himself stats or get himself points or blocks and make himself look good, but he's going to do what the team needs and do what it takes to win on a game-to-game basis. And as a big man himself, Donovan Clingan can understand Wemby and understand what he's going to be trying to do on offense, and I just think that's going to help Clingan get one step ahead of him on defense. Now, of course, I'm not making the case that Donovan Clingan is just going to be able to dunk over Wemby or score on him anytime he wants, but if the Blazers are going to want to be able to compete with the Spurs in the playoffs, they're going to need a way to slow down Wemby, and Donovan Clingan is that guy. Now, I don't think that Donovan Clingan is going to be this elite defensive player of the year caliber player his rookie season, but I do think he's going to be really good on defense even on opening night, and I think he'll at least be able to give most centers a problem while he's defending them. And if hypothetically the Blazers and Spurs were able to make it to the playoffs this year, which obviously won't happen, then I still think that even in his rookie year, Clingan would be able to be a problem on defense and help slow down Wemby. I think regardless of how good or bad Donovan Clingan's offense is, his defense I believe is going to be something that he already does at an elite level, and he's going to be able to be helpful on that side of the ball no matter what. Again, he may not be a defensive player of the year, but I say give him 3 to 5 years to get used to the NBA and develop his game a bit more, get used to the NBA speed and just the physicality as a whole, and I think he'll easily be able to develop into a problem for just about anyone on defense. And in a few years might be one of, if not the only players in the NBA to be able to stop one of the future best players of all time, Victor Wembanyama. So there you have it. I believe the Blazers are in a really good spot right now with a lot of loaded young talent. I'm not going to talk about that too much here, as I have made a few videos about that in the past, but I think looking ahead to the future of the NBA and who Victor Wembanyama is going to become, I think the Blazers are just one step ahead on getting a guy that can stop him on offense while providing a lot of other useful skills to the team as a whole. So I think Donovan Clingan was the perfect draft pick this year. But comment below and let me know your thoughts on Donovan Clingan and if you think he'll be able to compete with Wemby in the future. Do you think he's enough and has the defensive ability to stop him? Or do you think the Blazers should still try to load up on defensive talent? I appreciate you watching the video. If you wouldn't mind subscribing and liking the video on your way out of here, that would really mean a lot. And of course, if you like basketball or NBA content in general, then you gotta hit that subscribe button. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and until next time, I'll see you later.